One of the ones.
It'll color back up. Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for coming. I thought we'd have a few more people here, but it is early on Monday morning, and apparently some people might have forgotten about this very important meeting. I want to introduce Mayor Chiaverotti. She's going to give a State of the City address, and after she's through, we'll introduce a few more very important people. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. I don't have a podium, so I'm going to use this. I do my little bullet points here so I don't forget. There's a lot to talk about. And I want to thank you all for allowing me to come today, inviting me, and coming to here. In my previous role, Tina's job, I used to coordinate fees for the chamber. And we actually used to have the mayor come every year for a while, and then we cut it back. I don't know if it's just because we had so much information on different levels to get to the community that we started changing it up. So I'm glad to have the first time after almost a full year in to talk to you, and a fair amount has happened in a year, and I will start with that. First of all, something that doesn't surprise you is that the way politics is today, the civil discourse is not surprising. It's just on all levels, and it's driven mostly by the spending issues at the federal level, and certainly the issues at many state levels, including our own, that I believe Governor Walker is addressing as he moves forward, whatever side issue you're on that, but he's certainly put some tools in place for us, and what that has meant for the city of Muskego is that we saved $70,000 last year and at least $200,000 this year by getting the employee contributions to the pension plan. We have our own health care plan. We are not in the state, so because legislation had nothing to do with us, we've always had a better plan. And the other thing is there's a lot of the political buzzwords right now. Always has been, but the rhetoric is stronger than ever before, like out of control spending and transparency, and those are all good words. But I think our community, our voters, they're smart, they pay attention, and hoping that they will see pass law that, because as most of you know, the city of Muskego is in good fiscal shape, pretty much always has been. Muskego's done a good job all these years, and many municipalities have not going to take the rap for all the negative things that are happening at the federal and the state level, but Muskego's in great shape, and I'll be going over that very shortly. So, just highlighting a few, it took me a while to come up with these, of the things that I feel that have been accomplished in my first year are the bargaining units. When I got elected, I wasn't even sworn in, and that was one of the first things I had to do, is I had to meet with the police association and bargain. And basically what I propose is what they agreed to, which I don't think any other municipality accomplished, which was no pay increases, 0, for 2011, and that when and if the budget repair bill passed, that they would honor that immediately and start paying into the pension. Again, I don't know of any other municipality that got that agreement, but we did. And so that's where that $70,000 I mentioned earlier, had we not gotten that agreement, we wouldn't have saved that $70,000 last year. And then what that means for us going forward is $200,000 savings this year. Presented a 0% levy increase, which the council adopted, unchanged, which is not, according to our finance director, has not happened in many, many years, so I'm pretty proud of that. I do want you to know that I should backtrack. My first proposed budget was actually, I think, a 0.9% increase to the levy. What the state has allowed us is, and I'm not in objection to this, is we can't raise our levy more than our net new growth. Our net new growth for, that would have been 2010, which is what would have been the, 2011, which would have been for the 2012 budget. Our net new growth was 1.06, so I was still under that in the first proposal that I made. But then an unusual thing happened. We got more state aid for transportation than we anticipated. I think approximately $170,000. And naturally, I had many aldermen that were like, oh, we can put it here, we can do that. But I said, no, we'll do a zero levy budget increase, and the reason I suggested that is because clearly I balanced the budget without that $170,000. So I thought it was only the right thing to do. I managed to do it without it, so we lowered the levy. Now with that said, I do want to make clear, I do not hide behind anything, I'm going to tell you the truth. You can't do a zero levy budget year after year after year. We'll be in serious trouble if we do that. And the reason is, there's a reason that the state allows us to use that net new growth. When you have that growth, you're going to probably have new roads, you're going to have new added services that you have to provide. Not to mention that your fuel costs, your salt, anything is going to go up. And we do give raises typically every year, and we should. I mean, what those are, we didn't last year, but what those are now based on pay for performance. And that's a good thing, because that encourages our employees to have defined goals and achieve those goals, and then that's how they earn that raise. But anyhow, costs keep going up. So to continually have a zero levy increase would only cause us to likely get rid of some of our, or harm some of our services. And I can tell you, I don't care who I talk to, nobody wants to reduce our services. Okay, another thing that we did, and I kind of jumped around, is, or that I got accomplished, is outsourcing the building inspection department. That was an underutilized area. Obviously, construction is down. It's going to be down for a number of years. I mean, it's going to pick up, but it's going to take a long time, if ever it comes back to where it was. Keep in mind, when in the heyday, we were averaging about 300 new home starts a year. That's big. I don't think we're going to see that again, at least not in the time that I'm here. We may get back to 200, whatever, and I forgot to look up the number, but I know we're well below that. Maybe Jeff can.
50 a year.
50 a year, so that tells you. So Jeff brought that forward, that the outsourcing, because that was something the council had talked about for a number of years, and this was the right year to do it. That savings was approximately $150,000, and that's annual, that's going forward. The IT department, though, we upgraded, and there's good reason for that. I put together a task force on communications. We're a little behind the times on our technology. This is about, this feeds into transparency. One of the websites you could take a look at for municipality is the City of New Berlin. That's one of them we're kind of modeling ours after. It's time that we get up to speed and we improve our communications two-way, where the citizens can go on, they can quickly find what they're looking for, they get a drop-down box, and they, instead of, let me ask you this, you probably don't even know if you have a drainage issue, what department is that? Most people don't know what department they go to when they have some kind of concern. This drop box just says drainage problem. They click on that and the email goes directly to the correct department. That's just one of many. And then, of course, this task force, which is mostly marketing people. Scott in the back is one of them on there. And what they're doing is they're going to help us also, eventually, if we can get this new website, to design what it will look like, that whole look and feel, so that it better reflects what Muskego is really all about. So anyhow, we need to upgrade the IT department. Again, because we're behind, we need to get more and more up to speed on all the IT. So the IT director came to me and suggested a reorganization. And so what that meant was just a half a person increase. But he's been acting as multitasking. He not only as the department head, but he's been doing a lot of the other work that he needs to have a staff person for. So we're getting that tweaked and better for moving forward so that we can better communicate. Also, this year, proud to say that we, as part of the search committee that I served on, we hired a new library director, and Pete is in the back of the room. Glad to see you here today, Pete. Nice young professional. We've got a number of young professionals working for the city now. It's a good thing. Streamlined our purchasing policy. That is very important. We have an executive branch of government, and what we don't need is micromanaging. There is no private company that micromanaging works well for either. You have to put your people in place, you have to trust your people, and it all has its checks and balances. There's thresholds for how much a department head can make a decision on expenditure within a budget, outside of a budget. It's all spelled out. Modeled it after the Brookfield one, which always seems to be leap years ahead of many of us, so I'm pleased with that. Let me see, we're gonna go down to the bargaining units I talked about. I apologize, I'm jumping ahead. And then again, our budget, I think I jumped with that. And then our debt issue, that a little bit has been talked about with that. I just want you to know that once again, Moody's rating for the city is a AA2, which is a high rating, and they base it for us having an outstanding obligation debt. We have the authority to borrow up to $131 million. I don't advocate that we ever do that. We're far from that. We only borrow 27% of what we can borrow, basically around $36 million. That's what our debt is. That's very low. In fact, they say that that is very lower than the median rate for most municipalities in the state. So we're doing really, really well. In addition, our old debt, before the new borrowing we just did of $14.5 million, our old debt is going to be paid off within the next 8 years, with much of it paid off in the next 5 years. Not to mention that half of that debt is TIF related. We have very successful TIFs, or tax incremental districts, also TIFs. So that's not the same kind of debt, for one, that's not just going out and borrowing for certain city projects. That's to bring the economic development to the community. So I think, again, our debt will be paid off in 8 years, which is why we could absorb this $14.5 million, of which half, a little more than half, is Janesville Road, which you'll be hearing about shortly. That's a long overdue road construction project. So again, half of it is for Janesville Road. Then we have $2.5 million for, actually not the barn, we have $1.25 million for a conservation property that we bought, the Bourse property, if any of you are familiar with that. And I mean, that was a significant amount of money, and just some of us are surprised we didn't hear much about that, which I'll get into the lake park, because it's similar kind of thing, only there'll be less use of that property. But that property does protect the lake, so that was a good decision, although we did, I will say, council did end up paying more than the appraised and assessed value on that. I tried to point that out, but you know, unlike the lake properties, those are below the assessed and appraised values combined. The Pioneer Drive in that borrowing is $2.5 million. However, that's going to come in under budget, probably less than $1.5 million. That is because we didn't know if the residents wanted to bring the water main all the way through the road, and those on the south end do not want the water main, so we won't be taking it there. But the vast majority on the north end want to have the water main brought in, so we'll be doing it. And it's the right time because Janesville Road intersection is going to be ripped up for the county, so this is the time to make that move. Otherwise, it would be costly to rip it up and do it again later. So it's a smart decision. So that will be under $1.5 million. Woods Road Trail is $500,000. That was moved up. That was in the 2014 budget, but the alderman chose to move that up based on Janesville Road reconstruction. The concern is that much traffic is going to shift over to Woods Road, and apparently there's a lot of people that already bike and walk on Woods Road, so they wanted to get these paths in earlier to keep the people safe. We are borrowing at 1.6% approximately, which is phenomenal. Which is why moving some of these projects up makes all the sense in the world. This is the time to do it. We're making smart decisions here. These are smart business decisions. You might hear some comments, I call a little bit of rhetoric again, but that we took out notes for the 2-year borrowing and then they will switch over to bonds. This is customary. If anybody here is in the construction field, they know that that's how it works in the construction field. That's how it works for government as well. Because these are all estimates. Now Pioneer Drive is a good example. We estimated $2.5 million and it's going to come in less. All of these projects, we don't know what we're going to run into. We had another road project we did not borrow for, and I'll give you that example, Test Corners Road. That's coming out of our general road project. This year we're dedicating everything to that because that road is in terrible disrepair. That was one where we found we had subsoil issues. So that one's going to come in a little above budget, but then Pioneer is coming in under. But that's why you take out notes, because it saves you more than it doesn't. And for example, our financial advisors had laid it out for us that if we went right into bonds, we wouldn't get that 1.6 right away. We'd get a little bit more. The savings we're going to have over the next 2 years at 1.6 is very substantial. And then we'll roll into the notes later. And they don't anticipate the rates moving much over the next 2 years as well. And that's customary borrowing. Okay. Now, economic development. Can't tell you, Jeff, I know will correct me if I'm wrong, but we do have interest definitely on Moreland Road. Jeff gets communications, and I talk to a few people. We reach out constantly. And the one thing that everybody in this community wants is restaurants. And I'm going to tell you, Jeff and I work really, really hard to get those restaurants. And in time, we will get them. The issue that we face is that most of these restaurants that we call, and I in particular called Red Lobster and TGI Fridays and Chili's, what they're looking for is over 100 million square feet of retail within a certain radius, and we're not quite there yet. We're moving in that direction, and they recognize that. So they are watching us, so that's a good thing. And it doesn't mean that we won't get them even before that, so we're staying on top of it. But we have some other businesses besides restaurants that have been contacting us, and so we're working with them, and nothing we can divulge at this time, but primarily for Moreland Road. There is some small interest on Pioneer Drive. Been approached by 2 business owners. And I will tell you a little bit of that has to do with that the road is getting redone, and also they are hoping that the lake park happens. Now, I don't know that that means they go away or not, but I know that that is one of the things that they're watching. And then a third business that I've been talking to is a restaurateur that's involved in a restaurant in downtown Milwaukee. And they've been watching the lake park very well. They feel that this is something that they need to happen, that creates that destination, and then they would have an interest in coming to Muskego. So that is that. And then as far as economic development, the CDA, to kind of update the Sustainable Economic Development Plan that the city developed back in, I think, 2003, that Don Reedy was a big part of. The CDA wanted to get the marketing piece updated, and I actually haven't had a chance to read this whole thing yet, but what I've seen, it looks very, very good. It's going to be a tool for the community development director to use to recruit businesses in certain business districts of the city. It'll tell us exactly who we should be going after and where. What I've also learned in this past year, but I also learned a lot of that when I worked for the chamber, one of the most important things that you can do in a city to create economic development is less bureaucracy, streamlining. That's it in a nutshell. When we create hoops, or we maintain too many hoops for businesses to jump through, that's when we lose the businesses. And I have to remind our council every now and then, I think they all mean well, but we have some that would like to micromanage, and we have an executive branch of government, and we don't need to have all this unnecessary micromanaging and all these hoops and things for everyone to jump through. If we start going in that direction, I can assure you, we will stagnate when it comes to economic development. Less obstacles is the bottom line. Now I'm going to go to controversial issue of the lake park and just give you a status update in case many of you haven't heard. The council just voted on a 5-2 vote last Tuesday to delay the decision. I think that was the right decision. For all those who don't know why not a referendum, I want to explain that. We have, the state requires per statute that we go to referendum when the cost is over $25 million. We have our own policy with a threshold of $10 million. When we have these policies, what would not be good is for us to move away from that, because then every time we make somebody happy, the government's always going to make somebody unhappy. That's just the nature of life. We will be running to referendum all the time. It's costly, it doesn't get things done. However, I think the council listened to the people though, and the petitioners had asked to see a park development plan, costs associated, as well as the maintenance costs. And so I think that that was a fair conclusion to come to, that the council's gonna move in that direction and get that information, and it'll be all out there for everyone. Where it'll go, I do not know. But I wanna give you a few stats that's been very, very difficult for me to get out, so that the average person can understand. Once again, I'm gonna say that because of what's happening at the federal and the state level, the municipalities are taking a beating. We're in great fiscal shape. This and some other things are not necessarily spending, it's investing in your community. And again, I don't know that it'll go forward, but you at least need to know the facts. The council had estimated when they first started this process that it would cost $4 million to buy the 2 properties. Now I'm going to stop there and tell you why these 2 properties. I get asked this, I've got a few questions that I get asked constantly. They're in our comprehensive plan, they're in our parks and open space plan. They got there through multiple community-wide meetings and citizen input and citizen surveys. The property owners approached us. And about 2 years ago, there was the Bring Back the Lake thing that the city took the lead on. I don't agree with how that was done. I think it was well intended, but it was a misstep. Because they took the lead, it looked like they were purchasing property, the city that is, and then turning around and selling it back to a developer for private development. I don't know if that's the way it was supposed to plan, but it looked that way. That's not the way to do it. And the citizens at that time said they weren't necessarily opposed to a park on the lake. They had concerns the way the city was doing it. They also felt it was too large. So these property owners approached the community development director last summer. He came to me and told me, and I said, whoa, I wasn't involved in Bring Back the Lake. Would you please ask Mr. Dilworth if he would give me 2 weeks? I needed to read all the comments from all the citizens during that Bring Back the Lake. He granted me that, and I appreciate that to this day. I spent 2 weeks reading all the comments, and that's what I came away with. That the majority of the people weren't opposed to a park on the lake, but again, they had their concerns. They didn't want any boat traffic, which is why no boat launch was proposed back then, nor now. They didn't want the city purchasing property and turning around and selling it back to a developer. They felt it should be a little bit smaller. So basically, those were the things that I said, okay, if you address those, if you don't, I don't want to see it. So when he finally brought it forward, those were addressed, and we said, okay, take it to council and our committee of the whole, which is basically the council, and they advanced from there. Now, we have estimated $4 million to purchase, and why those 2 properties again? I use my little visual. If we go to the east of those properties, we find ourselves in the Bay Breeze condo complex. I think anybody with any logic realizes we can't buy out a whole condo complex. First of all, they have to all be willing sellers, which wouldn't be the case. It's way too costly. The city, that would be fiscally irresponsible, so we can't do that. If we continue further east, we now get to a point where the road and the lake get much farther apart. That defeats the purpose of having that synergy for having that park on the lake near your business district. So we come back to the 2 properties again, and then we go to the west. Directly to the west, there are 2 property owners during Bring Back the Lake that were very open, straightforward. They are not interested in, they aren't interested parties interested in selling. We respect that. We don't force anybody to sell their homes to us. So then, which by the way would have been a nice spot, no beach, but it would have been a great green space. But they aren't interested, so we move on. And if you go further west, you now go on the other side of the dam. You now leave the business district. And that property there isn't as deep as the ones we're looking at. So to get that same 4.5 acres, we'd have to buy a whole lot more homes. It would probably be more costly than even the 2 that we're buying. And that's the stuff that people don't quite understand. So anyhow, the city, the council estimated $4 million to buy those 2 properties, and we invited our financial consultant to come in, and I asked, personally, this is the way I like to do, this is how I run my household, worst case scenario. So I said, worst case scenario, we knew we had funds available for this purchase. Tell us, if we borrowed the whole $4 million, what does that mean to our tax levy? And he said nothing, because once again, you're going to be paying off your old debt in the next 8 years. You're in great shape, no problem. You can borrow the $4 million. It will not impact the levy. So that was good news. However, we do have $2 million in landfill funds, which are earmarked for quality of life investments. We also have $750,000 in TIF residual funds. And we've also been told from the DNR that we can get up to a $700,000 grant, and we're told we will likely score high and well because the DNR looks very favorably on returning property on the lake to green space. So if we used all of those funding sources, we wouldn't have to borrow anything. Now that doesn't mean, council may not want to use every one of those funding sources. But keep in mind, even if they borrow the 4 million, which is now only 3.5, because the properties came in less than we anticipated. So I guess that's it in a nutshell. Again, I don't know where it'll go, but I think it's still the right thing that we're going to get the development plan. At least people can see it. Even if it never happens, it's something to look at going forward. But it's called listening to the people, and I think the council has done that. And then I'm going to end with, like us on Facebook and Twitter. The city is now in the realm of the social media world. So we hope that you will take the time, if that's what you're involved in, and like us. Our Parks and Rec has been in there for a couple of years, and we now have our Community Development Director updating positive things about the community, and we're getting more and more people to like it all the time, so we hope that you will too. I hope I covered everything, but if you have any questions before the next speakers come up, I'll be happy to answer.
I got a question. If I heard you right, you said that the city saves money because they have a better health plan than the state.
Yeah, we're self-insured. We got many years ago. I used to be an alderman on council 10 plus years ago, and back then is when we got out of it.
Well, it's hard to imagine that, because when you think somebody would plant sweet nothing in the states either, that there's better plans out there.
Yeah, there's other municipalities that have moved away from it. We get a better deal. You have to be self-insured. You have to put up some money, and see, we've always been in good fiscal condition, so we're positioned to do that.
Yep.
Not every municipality is positioned to do that.
But we're not talking about other municipalities, we're talking about the state, which has much better buying power than the city.
Yeah, but they're not necessarily. You'd be surprised. I dare go down this path. My husband's an insurance agent, and there's a little myth about you need to have access to a plan. I will give you that. It's very difficult if you can't have access to a plan for the most part, except for my husband occasionally writes some insurance. He does very little in health insurance, but you'd be surprised to find out that whether you're in a plan or not, sometimes those rates aren't that much different. It's just the nature of that industry. But no, we have a great plan.
Okay, it's hard for me to get my hands around that.
We also reimburse the employees up to a certain point too. We've got a higher deductible, but then we give them something back on that. But that's how we keep our premiums low, and get to give them the health care that they need.
So part of it's a much higher deductible than the state's?
I don't really know what the state's is, but I would guess. I believe the deductible is just under $2,000 for the city. I don't know what it is, and we reimburse a portion of that. I don't know what it is for the state.
Okay.
But our employees like it. They're very happy with and we've had it for years. And some municipalities that plan for it can do it and have done it. But we're fortunate again to have a landfill in our community, so we get about $1 million a year in that, and that's, I think, the funds that helped us set this up many years ago to get it started.
It just makes me wonder if that's true, then what's wrong with the state? Why aren't they doing something better?
It's a good question. Ask the state. I don't have the answer to that. Yes, Dave back there. Yes.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to know what the city has in the future, their ideas that are going to deal with Mr. Dyer and his tree farm. Of course, amongst the citizens, they call it the dead tree. I mean, as a private citizen, it's to me like a blank space, and it's ugly and awful, and I understand his lawsuit is extreme.
Yeah, we're in litigation. I think everybody knows that. So when you're in litigation, I'm handcuffed to some point of what I can say. But I can tell you this, that last week, Wednesday, we had the court-ordered mediation. So for 7 hours, I was in Quarles and Brady's building with all our insurers. It was a cast of characters. We were in all kinds of rooms. But there were 7 hours of mediation, and the mediator spent 1 hour with us, the city. All the other time was with the plaintiffs, if that gives you any idea how difficult this is to resolve. Okay? We got 1 hour. That's all we got. And the plaintiffs just backed out, which is Art Dyer and the others in his lawsuit. We barely got started in discussing the negotiations, and they walked out. So I don't know what to say. I mean, we went in to put our best foot forward, and we didn't get much opportunity to do that. So it is what it is, and we'll see where it goes from here. The door has been left open on both sides to still continue mediation, so we'll see where that goes. And we also have coming up, I believe, in May, a hearing for the dismissal of our attorneys to dismiss many of the charges, if not all of the charges. So, and to give you another little piece of history, last year, as you know, his lawsuit against the city was for $120 million. He was suing the city for, and it was called a takings claim, among other claims in there. And the judge denied his taking claims. So that $120 million is gone, but the judge at that time was transitioning into another court, so he kind of just said, okay, you can refile. Maybe some of the other claims can be heard. It's just, we just always seem to be in the wrong spot at the wrong time. So he refiled, he being Art Dyer, and now the lawsuit is at $46 million. But we went from 120 down to 46. So we'll just keep chipping away. City's done nothing wrong, I can tell you that. City's done absolutely nothing wrong, we'll just move forward. But that doesn't mean we still don't want to put our best foot forward and try to resolve this if we can, but you have to have a willing partner to mediate, so.
So my next question, if I may, if we get it to the point where the city can possibly resolve it with Mr. Dyer, what are your kind of plans, or hasn't anything been discussed over what that section of the city might have? I mean, are you thinking of park?
Okay,
are you thinking development? Are you thinking?
I think until we own, we're not going to know what. I mean, ideally commercial would be good.
That's where.
Well, commercial and residential is good. It's always called for mixed use. I mean, you know, park, I don't know. That's never been discussed. That doesn't mean it can't ever be discussed. But just to tell you, this marketing plan kind of confirms to some of us some concerns that we had. Not saying that the property isn't of interest to us and important to all of us, but the situation is that Moreland Road is the hot spot. That's where you, first of all, nothing on Janesville Road here, including part of the mall, is adequate for a big box business. So if any of you are thinking you can get a big box business there, you're wrong. You can't go there. You can't go there. So that means you're going to get small, right, I don't think we want you anyhow. So it means you're going to get smaller types of businesses and probably some residential. I don't think you're going to get condos because, you know, we got a saturated industry with condos as it is. They're not selling as well, and they can't get the loans, the developers, to build the condos. So I ask yourself, what else does that leave for residential? Just ask yourself. Not saying it's a bad thing, but there's so I don't know. And anyhow, I was saying that this marketing thing has told us that Janesville Road isn't as high priority anymore. They did note that if the lake park happened in that general area, that would be a little bit higher priority. Not a little bit, it would be higher priority. That's why Jeff and I already hear about some interest because there's that potential. Doesn't happen. But it's difficult to get the restaurants. But if you can have a little bit of mini Pewaukee or something like that, I think you can get those restaurants and some of those little shops. Without it, we probably never will, and I hate to make that sound bad. I'm not going to say never. We might get a few things. It'll be very, very difficult to, and we'll just probably be much like New Berlin and other suburban communities. So it's a defining moment. It's up to the people. You either want to be a special community, or you just want to be like every other cookie-cutter community. That's just a decision the community has to make. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much, I appreciate it, and I want to thank Dina. Nice to be here, just speaking today and doing all the work that you do so well.